Hello, everyone, and thank you for making time for the Universe Rights for this month. Um, it actually really comes in with the current climate of the country where we are seeing a lot of people uh, getting onto the freelancing boat. And especially since the pandemic, I think it's burgeoned a lot more. And for this evening's Right Circle, we have with us Robert Vlach, who's a senior business consultant specializing in supporting independent professionals and business owners. And in 2005, he founded one of the largest national freelance communities in Europe, which is currently being expanded into freelancing.eu. And in 2012, he founded Europe's first think tank for freelancers, which meets regularly in Prague and other cities. And just to go to Prague, I'd do anything to be a freelancer. He's also been holding freelancing courses for more than a decade, has consulted with over 300 business cases with individuals, startups, and companies. And he is the author of The Freelance Way, Best Business Practices, Tools, and Strategies for Freelancers, which has just been published by HarperCollins in India. So please go grab your copies after the session is over. And we couldn't have had a better person to hold the conversation together as our moderator for the evening. We have Pawan Lal with us, who's a senior business journalist who thrives on hard-to-get interviews and writing on diverse businesses that range from startups to conglomerates. And in his 25-year-old career, ranging across TV and magazines and newspapers, dividing his time between the US and India, he's written across industries that include automotive, art, apparel, banking, Bollywood, corporate feuds. My God, that's an exciting life. It also has jewelry. Okay, so talk about versatility at freelancing. Pawan is the man for you, and Robert is going to be there talking about his experiences. Pawan is also the writer of non-fiction white-collar crime books. And one of the latest ones is Flawed, The Rise and Fall of India's Diamond Mughal, Nirav Modi, and the other one is Yes Man, The Untold Story of Rana Kapoor. I think that should be enough to intrigue all of you to stay glued to your screens. I wish we could have Robert in India, but that's exactly why we do Universe Rights, which is presented by Sri Cements and is done in association with Siahi, who does the programming, and also with Prabha Ketan Foundation. Just one little request to all our audience who are attending, please do take a picture of yours while you're watching the event in such a manner that your screen also becomes a part of your frame along with you watching it. I hope that's not too tall an ask, but we'd like to do social media in and around the Universe Rights. So we will need your pictures. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Robert and to Pawan. Thank you.
Thank you, Meeta.
Thank you for the introduction. Beautiful. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Robert, it's an honor to have you here this evening over here in India. I guess it's afternoon in Europe where you are. And, I'm pretty psyched about this conversation because like Meeta said, freelancing is something I'm deeply involved in. I'm sure many of our listeners are involved in as well across careers. So let me ask you, right off the bat, the freelance way, and I love the cover, by the way, right? As I said, it doesn't make me want to think about work at all, but where did the inspiration come from?
For the book?
Yes.
I was working with freelancers directly, supporting my colleagues and friends, and later the whole community since early 2000s. And I'm freelance since late 1990s. I became a web developer in Spain. So my first gig was basically abroad in a different country. So I started gathering some experiences, then started helping others. And I also started to do some courses for freelancers. So I was confronted with countless stories of individual success as well as failures. And I'm a business consultant, so I also often see the dark side of running a business. You know, the dark side that is usually not discussed publicly on social media. So I tend to have a pretty realistic view about what running a business entails, not only freelance business, but also a small business or a startup business. And well, first of, I don't know, 15 years of doing this, I was, you know, mostly concerned about the national community we were running in the Czech Republic, in the small country in the middle of the Europe. And I was waiting for someone to translate and publish a book about freelancing for our market. I was waiting for years and it just didn't happen. I think the reason was because many of the books that cover freelancing tend to be oriented to their national market. So Americans write about the American issues like, I don't know, for example, health insurance, pensions, or saving for retirement. So each country has some specifics, right? And so that was probably the reason why there was no translation of any book of this kind. And then I had an immense chance, good luck, by meeting my Czech publishers, Jan Melville Publishing, who basically gave me a carte blanche for writing the book. You know, like I have to say, I really love, you know, like short, brief books about, you know, important things. I really like Stephen Pressfield, War of Art and other titles he wrote. So I had this idea that I would write something, you know, really short. Mm-hmm. And they said, okay, go ahead, write it. And I started writing. And after 2 months, basically, I realized that my style, my writing style, is definitely not the one of Stephen Pressfield, and my book is going to be long. So I was concerned, and I called my publishers and said, you know, it wouldn't be probably a short book. It looks like it will have like something like 800 pages. And they said, go ahead, just do it, because a lot of you are the first-time writer. Lots of it will be just, you know, something that can be edited out. So don't worry, we'll edit it down to a nice 200 or 300 pages. So I wrote the book. It took me, I don't know, half a year, something like that, or even longer probably, because I needed some preparation as well. And then I handed it over to them. And my editor and publisher, Tom Baranek, he just looked at it and he wrote me after a week, hey, there is not much stuff that we can edit out. It's really full of information. So let's keep it long. And the first edition, like the Czech edition, was like 760 pages long, very long book. Wow. So we had like really modest expectation about the market sales, but it totally exceeded our expectations. It became a national bestseller basically. And so then we got the idea that we will produce the English version. So it was translated by Eric Piper, and then later edited by me, by myself, and Scott Hudson, my great editor. And then we started, you know, approaching other publishers all around the world. And then it got to India, and through Mita and her outstanding agency, we got great support there, and we found the best publisher in HarperCollins. So that's the story in a nutshell.
Fantastic. You know, I've got to ask you, freelancing is an interesting approach to professional life. And for those who've never tried it, there are a lot of misconceptions and a lot of assumptions that people would have, which turn out to be totally untrue. I had them personally, right? As being a full-time writer for publications. And when I went freelance, I learned a lot of different things. I learned that, for example, it's not necessarily as difficult to be able to get opportunities. And, you know, in that context, I'd love for you to share with us and the audience what you discovered are some of the biggest misconceptions about the freelance way across industries.
Wow, there's so many, I don't even know where to begin. I think it has these misconceptions. I think they have a common denominator, which is that being freelance is a totally informal term, right? So it's not universally defined, and the definitions of a freelancer, they just differ widely, you know. Just to give you a few examples, a freelancer can be, for example, a temp, someone working for a really low wage, for different clients and through an intermediary, through an agency, for example, someone who lacks any advanced expertise and is really like low wage worker, I would say. And then you have the other opposite, for example, independent professionals who work in a professional sport or entertainment. So you can say that Roger Federer is an independent professional. You know, he has a team of people who support him, who help him to work at his best. But I would say that he's an independent professional as well as Bruce Springsteen, for example, right? Like he can go on a tour. He has a great number of people helping him, but it all comes down that he has to come to a gig, do his best, like please his fans. And of course, the earnings of these people are on the completely opposite side of the spectrum. So first misconception I would say about freelancing is that people who don't study the subject more deeply usually tend to define it rather narrowly or with some specific, cases in mind, and don't reflect on the huge diversity we have there. Second is that I would say that there are one of the possibilities how to look on the problem, how to approach it, is that we may divide freelancers into some, groups, basically. And I would say that the huge difference is between freelancers who are, I would say, dependent workers. They may be working through some platform or through, I don't know, some intermediary, some agency. And these workers usually don't have very advanced expertise, and they tend to be dependent on the intermediary. So they usually don't work directly with the clients. In some countries, especially in the West, they are now more and more seen as precarious workforce. So as people who are basically misclassified employees because they lack the independence of a business person. And then you have the other group, which is the group that is my book is specifically for and about. And these are independent professionals. So these are people who already have the business freedom. They have the freedom to be free agents on a free market. So they tend to look for clients. They tend to look at themselves as entrepreneurs, as small entrepreneurs, I would say. And they are free to develop themselves in any direction. So that, I would say, is the main misconception. And it's an important one, because if you try to count freelancers, study them, write books for them, you somehow have to distinguish between these two groups that are quite different, if it's clear what I mean.
Yes, absolutely. No, the next question I can't help but ask, and I think Mita inferred this, that in a world today where you have a post-pandemic environment and a lot of gig workers, gig economy, gig jobs, the freelance way is in many ways becoming almost common, almost the norm. What are some of the broader challenges you would advise people who are attempting to freelance work consider before they jump into freelancing?
Well, first of all, I think we still need to wait how the pandemic will influence the freelance economy in general. I think it's too soon to say, because what we see in any great social upheaval in the past. There are huge swings in the number of people who are trying to be freelancers. They are excited about the opportunities, and later they may find out, and many of them do or will do, that freelancing is not just for them. They may not like the hustle. They may prefer the stability of working 9 to 5. Also, the companies, if there is a lack of workforce on the market, they tend to motivate employees by offering them something that was previously reserved for freelancers. So, for example, in the West, you now have a lot of IT companies, for example, who offer remote work possibilities. So you may work from anywhere you like. They offer flexible working hours. They offer more freedom, which part of the activity in the company you'd like to choose. So companies are also very smart, and they are not stuck in the past. They are trying to attract people who are somewhere split between becoming a freelancer and becoming an employee, and they are trying to motivate them, to lure them by offering conditions that are pretty much similar to being a freelancer, but with a stability and of the income and so on. And that's why I have to say that we still need to see the real impact of the pandemic on the freelance economy, because there may be a regression to the mean. I don't see, for example, at the moment a future where everyone will be a freelancer. There are always waves of people trying it, and then you just go normalizing. So the current trend is not going up nor down. It's just oscillating along some standard mean, I would say. Mm-hmm. And then for the challenge for the people who try to become freelancers, that's a very important topic. So let me just outline the main two things about it. First of all, it's great to starting with realizing that by registering on a freelance platform, you just don't become a freelancer in terms of being an independent professional, right? So first of all, there should be some consideration whether you really want to become independent professional, and then if so, you will have to treat this career as a real business. So there are usually two parts to it. One is that each independent professional is approaching the market with some publicly declared expertise, profession, or trade. So it would be a graphic designer and translator, negotiator, web developer, whatever. So you are selling your expertise to the market, and this is what the market wants, right? So you need to have that skill, because if you have a valuable skill, you have a great chance of earning a lot. If you have a skill that has little value, that is quite common or not in demand, that is not a good sign for earning good rewards. So this is one part. But the second part, and this is precisely why I wrote a book in the first place, is that you also need to have business skills. So these business skills is not something you sell to the market, but this is something you need to become better at managing your time, at setting your prices right, at doing, being solid in business negotiations, at managing your finances. And this is pretty complex, I would say. Like becoming a good graphic designer, for example, or good developer is really difficult on its own. But these people have to realize that the other part, becoming a good business person, is basically the same level of difficulty or even greater than your primary expertise. So this is definitely something these people should know. And if they are serious about it, just go ahead and learn something and learn something about the business side of things, not only about having the expertise, which is something we tend to do. As freelancers, we all love our primary expertise. We love to do it. You love writing. Am I right?
That's right. Yes. Yeah. So, that's a wonderful insight. So, Robert, I also want to ask you, when freelancers are starting out, especially younger freelancers and people who are trying it for the first time, it's a bit of a difficult uphill hustle because they have the skills, but the market out there and the potential clients may not necessarily be convinced. And many a times, freelancers can end up getting shortchanged and being offered compensation or rates that are very low for the kinds of services. And it's a fine balance. How do you end up trying to build your name and build your reputation in a freelance industry for whatever work you're doing, and at the same time ensuring that you're getting some level of profitability and not ending up working for free? Because a lot of clients, a lot of corporations will say, hey, well, we've heard about you, and let's say, for example, you're good at making business plans. Well, send us a business plan about ABC and we'll see if it kind of your style fits the bill. And a lot of folks use that as a sort of a launching pad to actually get information. And a freelancer can sometimes, because he or she is not backed by a large corporation or a strong company, end up becoming exploited to some extent.
Yeah, you are definitely right. And this is where we are slightly getting back to my original, misconception about freelancing, that there are these two groups, people who are basically dependent and sometimes exploited as a precarious workforce, I would say. But let's just assume for now that we are talking about people who are willing to go really directly on a free market looking for clients, all right? Because that's this different group. First of all, I would say that freelancing has this advantage that you don't need a lot of capital, like money or property, to run freelancing as a business. There are some exceptions, of course. For example, for crafts, you need some equipment, right? And so, but in general, independent professionals tend to be knowledge workers. So these are people who have some marketable knowledge, skills, some expertise. So the first idea would be basically to do your homework and think about what skills do you have, what is the value on the market. This can be researched pretty well. You may look at other freelancers, at what prices they are willing to work. There may be podcasts, articles, blogs about videos about going freelance in this or that profession. So the information is available there. So doing some research first, some small one. I don't mean like researching for 1 or 2 years, right? Like, I mean, like, reserving, I don't know, perhaps 5-8 hours a week, just doing the research and thinking about what would be your marketable skill or expertise that you just may be able to sell.
Yeah.
Then, a very reasonable strategy with freelancing is well, if you can afford it, just don't go all in, canceling your work, canceling your studies, and just starting all in running a freelance business. Because, as with any business endeavor, especially if you go freelance for the first time in your life, the reality of freelancing will surely surprise you every other day or so. Like, you are just learning things on the fly. So you are just excited and also, like, learning some completely new skill set. And that's when a good strategy comes handy. It's called Small Bets by Cole Newport. You may also call it side gigs or gigs, or the core of the strategy is to basically try to sell your expertise through one of gigs or one-off jobs, to clients that you find online or among your in your network of friends and colleagues. It may be also some distant relative or some friend of yours who is freelance or is running a small company and needs help. The goal of these first gigs is not to maximize the profits, but to get paid and have the realistic experience of doing a freelance gig. This is very important. Just get in touch, in contact with the real market conditions as soon as possible. Just don't theorize. Just don't, process, all this theoretical information in your head. Just try to do a single gig or two or three and get some real feedback from it. If you are really good, if you are diligent, if you produce, great value for, decent price, the client is likely to ask for more. It's quite probable because, to be honest, most people are not very diligent, very reliable, very hardworking. They are not. It's because they have other priorities. They are not trying to be really professional. So they tend to slack a little bit, not meeting deadlines and so on. But if you approach this, gigs with real professionalism in mind, the chances are that you will start getting some positive feedback. The client will ask you for more work. They may even recommend you to somebody else. Just don't rush it, because you were asking me about the reputation, a good name. I would say that to have a good name in a normal profession takes, I don't know, building it takes 5-10 years. So you won't have it in 2 weeks or 2 months, right? Yeah. So my first advice would be to get into real market conditions, but not building all the bridges behind you, just going there, trying those gigs. And if it doesn't work, just go one step back, think for several weeks or months, just perhaps shifting your expertise to something a little bit different, thinking about who to approach next, and so on. So that would be my first most important recommendation. And the second would be, try to network with other freelancers, your colleagues, your future friends, business friends, as soon as possible. Freelancers are really open to cooperate much more than companies are, because we need each other. If I want to take a larger assignment, a big job, I would say, as a consultant, I usually need colleagues who step in with me with their specific expertise. So if I want to do something really big, I need others, and I need to know these people in advance, how they behave on small gigs and so on. So I tend to, if I'm advanced professional, I tend to test these people that I'm in contact with on small gigs. And if I'm happy with what they do, if I see that they behave professionally, they have real passion for it, and they are really nice to deal with, I stick to these people, because I know that sooner or later I will need them for my clients, for some projects of mine. And that's how, by taking your time, you may just find yourself freelancing in 1 or 2 years and having the opportunities here and there. I think you even told me, Pavan, that when you started freelancing, that you find out that the opportunities are plentiful, right?
Yeah, and that's both a blessing and a challenge, Robert, because it brings me very smoothly to my next question, which is, how do you know when to say no as a freelancer? Because one of the challenges of the freelancer is not having a steady routine of work coming in like clockwork. For example, if you were working for a corporation, right? You have to hunt yourself, you have to farm yourself, you have to make the pitches. And sometimes work can be very, very random, so to speak. And so there's a tendency, which I've noticed at least myself, to take whatever contract comes. So when do you know that you should be saying no? And in your opinion, what are some of the instances when a freelancer said, no, I'm going to pass on this one and I'm going to take this one? How do you strike that balance?
That's a super question, and it has some really deep context. So let me try to address it. Although I think it's super complex, I will try to just point it out in two or three directions. First of all, I think for business negotiations, we all should design our playground in advance. So, for example, we may have some ethical boundaries, right? For example, I know freelancers who publicly declare that they would never work for a company which is producing weapons or doing some porn websites, or I don't know, killing animals for food because they may be vegans or whatever. So first of all, like, we set the boundaries ourselves. I may have, for example, a boundary that I wouldn't just go to a nearby expertise. Even if I'm inquired to do some gig there, I know that my primary expertise is elsewhere. And that's why I'm going to decline this opportunity, because it's not something I feel 100% confident that I can deliver, right? And there are others. You have mentioned, for example, these speculative work opportunities where someone offers usually a beginning freelancer some work, but it is not for money. It's for something little bit less specific. Like, for example, we will enhance your visibility, or we will just write you a nice testimonial, right? This is a manipulation technique. It's completely legal, and it is often misused against beginning freelancers. So you may have another boundary, that if you are a beginning freelancer and you just recognize that someone is trying to manipulate you into doing some free work for some speculative reward, you just say no. So first of all, we design the playground where we want to run our business. That's the first boundary for saying no. But there is a different boundary that is way more relevant to regular inquiries. And I would say that this is related to pricing. Like, freelancers tend to be really hesitant, if not negligent, in their pricing. So they, for example, when their business is growing, their reputation is growing, they have more and more inquiries. They tend to not raise the price, like raising the prices, and thus, like filtering the inquiries to more interesting, better rewarded. They tend to work more. So they don't work 8 hours a day, then they start to work 12 or 14, just only to keep up with the inquiries and with the level of work they have, So if they cannot work more, they often start, just turning down work, because they just don't have the capacity to take on more work. But I would say that this is if anyone finds themselves in this situation, this is definitely a wake-up call for your pricing, because the right moment when we should raise prices as freelancers is usually way sooner than freelancers do it. Freelancers tend to raise their prices or raise their rates too late, when they are overstressed, overworked, and they suddenly see this as the last measure to just, push the level of work back where it should be, But it's getting more complicated, because, it's difficult. It may be, challenging to raise prices to current clients, especially if you are already overworked and stressed. In these conditions, we usually tend to avoid more stress. So we delay the pricing change even further. So I would say if you are saying no to relevant inquiries, relevant works that you would usually do, the chances are that the problem is not with the inquiry, but with your pricing. I don't mean you, of course, I mean in general.
Yes, no, I understand.
So I would say that the most singular and simple answer to your question is first, start thinking, why are you saying no? Is it because you are overworked? If that is so, you have to do something with your pricing. If it is because you don't want to work for the client, because there are some red flags, this is fine. I mean, like as freelancers, and especially an established one, and especially if we have some financial reserves, we have the privilege that we may, pick the projects and clients we want to work with. So this is okay. I mean, like turning down work because you just don't like the company, or you don't like the way the other side treats you. This is okay, because as business persons, we have to fight for our side of the deal. We have to represent it. Freelancers often forget about it because they are very much pro-client oriented. We try to really do first and last thing for the client because we love the work. We want to serve them well. We want to have happy clients. But in this mindset, freelancers often also forget that their side also needs a representation. So if, for example, I'm overstretched, overloaded, I have to fight for my own interest here, raise the price, say possibly goodbye to some clients who are not willing to pay more, just end the projects, keep the good relationships, because we may later find a different ground where we will work together, but be more assertive in this regard. So as you see, it's pretty complex, but I hope I think
you managed to give a broad overview. Yes, thank you. I think we've got time for one more question from me before we toss to Urmi to take questions from the audience. And I think the question that I'm most curious about is, like, you're an expert in the freelance way. And while you were writing this book, as happens with authors when they're writing books, they sometimes along the way magically discover things that even they didn't know. And did that happen to you? And if so, what was it that you discovered?
Thank you for the question, Pawan. Well, I think the main discovery came for me later when we were working on the international English edition that is now published in India by HarperCollins. And it was the realization that, because English is not my native language, obviously, and well, it's sort of silly, but I have to say it, during the process, working with my editor, we were sitting on the manuscript, editing it here and there, like, I don't know, 8 hours a day. These were really long calls. It was all in English, and we were sometimes debating a single word because I wanted to edit the translated manuscript and to make it a bit more mine again, to be expressing my very thoughts. And the great thing about it was that I just discovered that I have a sense of style, as a writer in English, and that I have some, strong opinions about the language, about how should this be praised, and why, is it here praised this way? So I learned a lot about English language, about how to express myself, about what are the boundaries of style, because the most funny thing about it is that in English is a pretty, it's a universal language. It has so many different varieties, right? Like Australians write differently than people in the UK and then the Americans. And I found out that some of, these changes are non-negotiable. I mean, like this would be a bad grammar or whatever. But some of these changes that I was, pushing for are actually my style, a writer style being expressed. So one of the best discoveries in this process was that I discovered my English sense of style, something I had in Czech previously, of course, as a native, but I found it in English, and I love English. It's a beautiful language. It enables us to communicate on a global scale. I read most of the books. I read one book a week, perhaps, preferably in English, 90%. So I fell in love with English. That's the simple answer.
Wonderful. I'm going to toss to Urmi at the Prabha Khaitan Foundation, and she can go ahead and now open it up for questions, or encourage people in the audience to go ahead and ask the questions, send in their questions, or Robert can answer, and demystify any curiosity you may have. Over to you, Urmi.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Pawan. If any of you have any questions, please use the raise your hand option on your screen and I'll patch you in. To start with, we've got the first question from Sukant. I'm just going to allow him to talk so that he can ask.
Hi, Sukant.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good evening. It's not related to freelancing, but I was curious to know from you, what are the which are the most business-friendly countries in Europe, and what makes them click? The ones which are doing well.
Yeah. Well, I would say that Europe in general is business-friendly, is a very business-friendly part of the world if you are located in the European Union, because we have this single market. It's not ideal, there are things that cannot be so easily transported to a different country within Europe. For example, if you are a dentist or a doctor or architect, you would need probably some local license in another country. So there are professions that are just licensed, they are regulated, but this is basically the same in the US. In the US, there's a huge, nationwide market, but you have specific regulations for some professions in each state. Some of them have really silly regulations. I don't know, for example, for baristas or some, barkeepers. So, but in Europe in general, if you are a knowledge worker and you are present in Europe, living here or, being based here, it's very easy to cross borders and to serve all the European customers. If you are from a different country, you would probably probably the best choice would be to work to start with some proxy, to find a single client or some, agency or company in your field, and to get some, as I said, with the small bets concept, to get the real feel how different the European market is, what are the expectations of European clients, because each, cultural region has a different sets of, unwritten rules, and these are definitely different in India than in the Europe, than in the United States. So having some first-hand experience with what it is through a proxy would also serve you as a guide to the new market is a good idea. And I would also add some reading tip if you are interested. There is a great series of audiobooks produced by the teaching company. It's called Great Courses. It's a series of lectures by world's best intellectuals and professors. And one of them is called Customs of the World. And this is related to intercultural intelligence. So for people like you and me who are trying to cross borders internationally and who are getting in a close contact with somebody from a different culture, this is a great base, I would say. Because, for example, even for me as a Czech, to go working for a Swiss client is a difference, even though they are based in Europe. Because Swiss people, they have sort of different approach to reliability, to expectations towards meeting deadlines, and so on. So for you, studying European business culture in general is a good start, and then to have a proxy to work with, to start with, to have a single project or single gig, and then you can gradually, enhance your presence here. It's not about the country; it's about the market as a general. It's quite specific.
Thank you, Robert. The next question has come in from Shiv Dutt. He asks, what are the flip sides of freelancing for beginners and startups in the current post-pandemic ennui and the present circumstances?
Flip sides
Of
is meant.
freelancing.
You mean like what are the disadvantages?
He sent the question on chat, so.
Well, I'm not sure if I understand the question. Do I get it right that this is about, like what?
It means disadvantages, Robert. Yes, because in the post-pandemic, yes.
Yeah, he's confirmed that.
All right. Well, I would say that the disadvantages haven't changed a lot. This is a reason. When we try to survey freelancers, there are many researches and many surveys asking freelancers about their business and what are the advantages and disadvantages. I would say that the options that usually come on top are usually not too much related to general market conditions. So, of course, it may be there, for example, that getting retired is difficult, or getting health insurance is difficult, or that there is a corruption in this or that country. This may get mentioned, but what usually freelancers state as the main problem, and this is definitely a long-term top option, are basically financial swings and financial instability in their business. Because freelancing is, in general, if you are really a freelancer, freelancer working on a free market, you need to hustle a little bit, and your monthly income usually oscillates. So you don't have a steady salary, certain amount each month. So basically planning for the future is challenging, because you need to count in these swings, and also managing the finances and building your, I would say, financial health is a major challenge, because freelancers usually tend to underestimate this problem until it's too late, until they run out of reserves, or they have some dry spell for several months, because there may be this pandemic problem. But the pandemic is a general condition. It affects everyone, right? But if in that condition you are caught with little reserves, low reserves, financial reserves, or less reliable clients, so your business is not, gradually developed in a systematic way to sustain more stressful situations, you will have a particular problem with your personal finance. So I would say that freelancing in general is remarkably predictable in terms of the problems. I mean, like, these problems, they were here 10 years ago, and they will be here 10 years in future. Freelancers will have to face these business challenges. And it also relates to one story I would like to share particularly, because I think it's also important. The traits or characteristics that make a freelancer a success haven't changed much in last 2000 years, basically. If you look, for example, in European past at the period of Roman peace, people who were tradesmen there, craftsmen, for example, they needed to have pretty much similar characteristics in order to succeed. For example, they had to be, experts in something. They had to be good at their pricing. They had to be good at negotiating with their clients. They had to treat their clients well in order to build their reputation and get some more work going. They had to be really careful about their finances, about building reserves and preparing for these dry spells. And they also had to hire good helpers in order to support them. So when we look at the modern day independent professional, and if we look at the craftsman in a more or less free society, like hundreds or thousands years ago, basically the basic characteristics haven't changed much, and this is also embedded in our culture. Each one of you, as we sit here today, would be completely able to say how a real professional should behave, even though we are not taught this in school, because we have this, like a cultural agreement and expectation that the professional should be diligent, honest, hardworking, serving their clients, and so on. So that's why I would say that the main challenges we face as freelancers are pretty stable. And this is also why I wrote the book. I don't think that the basics will change in 10 or 15 years. I said in the foreword that this is dedicated to my children, not because of my fatherly sentiment, but because if they one day want to start freelancing, the basic rules for running a successful freelance business will remain unchanged. Not 100%, but 90% of it, probably so, for sure.
Thank you. The next question comes in from Sunita Pansal. She's asking if there are any agents or agencies who can help get freelance jobs, and would you suggest going through such agencies? She's asking from the point of view of writers and illustrators.
From a point of view of writers?
And illustrators.
Illustrators. All right. Yeah, this is also a great question. Thank you so much for posting it. I would say that in general, for people who have little expertise or expertise of little value, going through intermediaries like agencies and platforms is pretty much disadvantageous, because the chances are that you'll get, I wouldn't say exploited, but probably, treated in a way that it will be really hard to earn solid money. I can give you an example. I hired an animator in Bangladesh through Fiverr. We needed something really small done several months ago. It was really cheap, a few dollars. And I was looking at his profile and I saw that he has 1,000 ratings. 1,000 ratings. So it means that he probably did 1,000 small gigs, few dollars each. So he, for example, as an example, I would say he probably did 1,000 small animations and was paid, I don't know, $10,000 for all of this work. This is not a good reward, I would say, even for someone who is located in Bangladesh. Like if he would go out of Fiverr and try to at least part of his working time look for direct clients, I'm pretty confident that in India, Bangladesh, even in his location, he would be able to find better clients and better jobs. Not to mention if he would be able to reach out to Europe, to States, and so on. So this is the first thing I have to comment. And the second is that if you are doing something advanced, for example, if you are if you are advanced illustrator, if you have some unique style, something that is really distinct from what you see on Instagram, on the internet, if you are already a developed professional, then working with an advanced agency, an agency that is not taking illustrators by hundreds or thousands, but is picking individuals, that's where it makes sense. That will be your business partner, probably. They are way more likely to introduce you to new markets, to pay you, to offer you participations or really well-paid projects, and then it makes complete sense. If I may say a third thing, if you are, it's not your case, you are an illustrator, but if you are, for example, a scientist, for example, a lab technician, or someone who is, doing something really with a high expertise, that's where specialized agencies, for example, we sometimes call them boutique agencies, because they're specialized in a very narrow niche. That may be a really good choice to enter the market, because you will get some interesting projects, well paid. You will get accommodated with client work in different parts of the world, for example, and then you may gradually, contract clients directly, raise your prices. So, in general, the better and more valuable expertise you have, the better option is to work through agencies or intermediaries who don't hire freelancers by thousands, but they pick individuals based on their individual characteristics, style, expertise, and so on. So it all matters whether you are, a beginner illustrator or a really advanced one with a distinguished style. That's where you may approach, European agencies, for example, who do work with illustrators. I may get you in touch with one. I have a friend who is running an illustrator agency in Europe, and he's always looking for new collaborators. So look me up on LinkedIn, send me a link, and I may just connect you with them. It may be a new start for you in Europe. No problem. This is what we do as freelancers. We constantly connect freelancers one to each other, and we talk this way. That's how the business is done.
Thank you so much, Robert. Meeta, you're up.
Well, that was a very, very scintillating session. I have to thank Robert and Pawan for having made it so fascinating, and also for unraveling the various travails of the freelancing landscape. I'm sure our audiences have taken back a lot from both of you. And if you have any questions, do email them to us. And I'm sure Robert and Pawan will be very happy to answer as and when they get time. And I think the binding note is the way both of them have put themselves forward to be so giving of themselves and their expertise. So I'm really thankful to you, Robert, and to Pawan for your time for this evening, because I know, Robert, by the way, it's Holi tomorrow. It's one of our main festivals. So yes, we're all closing off for the weekend to celebrate. And what better way to start dreaming of? I'm actually thinking of maybe writing to you and asking for more opportunities myself. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Pawan, for hosting this. You had outstanding questions, and you should be in the spotlight as well, because you are a great writer. And if there is another session with you, I will definitely join you.
Right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.